How many of you value nature in that you go out of your way to connect with the earth, the sky, the water somewhere? So you can raise your hand. And how many do this more than once a month? And how many do this once a week? And how many do it daily? It's very hard for me to see them hands, but okay. The Earth is surrounded by a low-frequency magnetic field, a resonant cavity of electromagnetic waves, mostly in the 7 to 10 Hertz range. These are known as the Schumann resonances. It was a German atmospheric scientist by the same name who discovered that lightning, which occurs anywhere from 50 to 200 times a second all over the planet, lightning creates electromagnetic standing waves around the planet. The ionosphere is a layer of charged particles that protects us from solar activity. It can bend with the electromagnetic waves of the natural world or from those of the sun. As the ionosphere flexes with these rhythms, the Schumann resonances vary from 1 to 40 Hertz. You could call these the Earth's brain waves. The human brain is a 7 Hertz system. Natural forms have evolved to exist and to thrive in these low frequencies. We know about HAARP, High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, the military facility in Alaska that pumps millions of watts of power at the ionosphere for its so-called experiments. Bending the ionosphere changes the Schumann frequency, radically changing the frequencies in the Earth's resonant cavity and pushing on the ionosphere, as HAARP does, will strongly affect things that happen on the Earth, such as the weather. But I'm not here to talk about manipulation of the weather. Instead, I will talk about what radiation is, what frequencies are, and what they do. They have become part of our language, from FM, AM radio station IDs to descriptors for the wireless world exploding around us today. It all began with the invention of the X-ray by a German physics professor. Fascinated by the behavior of cathode rays, Wilhelm Röntgen discovered that when he placed his hand between a charged cathode tube and a barium-coated screen, an image appeared of the bones of his hand, shadowed by the flesh. This is a famous picture of his wife's hand, the circular object a ring, after 15 minutes of exposure. With the arrival of Röntgen rays, physicians, scientists, and electricians went crazy. X-ray devices became the rage, with treatments given for everything from cold to headaches. Radiation was deemed wondrous and healthful, like a visit to a spa. 2003, Marie and Pierre Curie received the Nobel Prize for their studies of radioactive minerals, radium, barium, thorium, uranium. They were the world's first explorers of natural radioactivity. Their daughter Irene, together with her husband Frederick Joliot, won the Nobel Prize in 1935 for creating artificial radioactivity, ways to make radioactive materials in the laboratory, maybe in the library too, cheaply and quickly, indispensable to the new field of radiation medicine. Radiation, a barrier breaker in the truest sense of the concept, drew the interest of the country's most powerful people. In 1907, Andrew Carnegie funded the Curie Lab for full-time research. 1913 saw the founding of the National Radium Institute. 1916, the American Radium Society. 1918, publication of the Army X-ray Manual. 1919, Radium Institute in Paris with 2 labs, the Curie Lab and the Pasteur Lab. Laboratory scientists studied the effects of radiation on bacteria, on mice, on dogs, on human tissues and brains. By the 1930s, serious radiation effects on human health were also being studied. Injuries, cancers, deaths of radiation researchers and subjects have not gone unnoticed, yet the growth of this industry went on. The Manhattan Project combined atomic bomb development with medical research. Overt and covert human studies were conducted. Colonel Stafford Warren, who invented the mammogram, served as the project's medical chief, witnessing the destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, everybody knew what radiation did and what it was at that time. Appalled by the effects of radioactivity, he wrote, and this is a quote, "The deadly range of radioactive products from the atomic bomb have been clearly demonstrated under controlled conditions. The only defense against atomic bombs still lies outside the scope of science. It is the prevention of atomic war." And yet the parade went on. Atomic energy was replaced by nuclear energy, a difference in terms only, for both are about splitting the nucleus of the atom, which releases great power. Nuclear tests were conducted worldwide in the 1950s and 60s. The stories of children playing in the dust, the fallout, are legendary and true, with major consequences. We have grown up in an age of radiation. Many of the health problems we see today, from cancer to autoimmune dysfunction to the slow creeping paralysis of ALS and multiple sclerosis, are the effects of radiation. Ionizing radiation, as X-rays and nuclear radiation are called, is known to heat human tissue. Another word for this is cook. Cooking tissue, destroying it quickly, drastically. For the past few decades, we have been told that non-ionizing radiation in the radio frequency microwave range does not heat or cook human tissue, that it is harmless, that cell phones and wireless technology employ a form of frequency transmission that does not hurt living creatures because the power density is so low. Ionizing means gaining or losing an electron. We are told that radio waves, because their energy is not enough to shake loose electrons, are perfectly safe. So here's how we describe waves. Wavelength is the distance between the crests of a wave. Amplitude could be described as the height of the wave. Frequency is the number of crests per second. Low frequency waves, like those in Schumann resonances, have very long wavelengths. Think about this. A 30 hertz wave, Schumann resonances are 1 to 40 hertz, has a 10,000 kilometer wavelength. Whereas a 300 gigahertz wave, which is 300 billion hertz, has a 1 millimeter wavelength. And the 3 gigahertz wave, like that of many household phones, has a 10 centimeter wavelength, has 3 billion cycles per second. The point is that frequencies are not just squiggled on a chart or a piece of paper. They are three-dimensional waves in spiral form. I want you to look at this. This is a mini Slinky I got many years ago. So this is a wave. It's a three-dimensional shaft of energy. It's a cylinder traveling at the speed of light. High-frequency waves oscillate, as I already said, in the billions. In the 900 megahertz wave, which is an old-fashioned cell phone, is 900 million cycles per second. So this wave energy is a force. Frequencies are forces, and these forces have been shown to agitate living cells, given that they oscillate in a range that is so foreign to what life is used to. James Clerk Maxwell was the real pioneer in electromagnetism. Heinrich Hertz was only trying to prove Maxwell's theory, yet Hertz is the name we relate to EM waves, not Maxwell. Maxwell showed us that electric and magnetic fields travel through space in the form of waves at the speed of light. In fact, light is just a wavelength we see traveling at the speed of other electromagnetic waves. Lightning is light striking with great power, 1 billion volts, so much that it has carved out a resonant cavity in the atmosphere around us. Now, I cannot say enough about our habituation to the Schumann frequencies, the long, languid wavelengths of the natural world. Think about the cell phone you hold to your head. Your head, 7 hertz system, and the phone is putting out 1 billion hertz, 1 gigahertz. Back in the 1930s and 40s, scientists exploring radiation observed its effect on many kinds of tissues. Organisms of all sorts were radiated. The country's top laboratories and best scientists hurried to expand their projects and skills. Physicians learned chemistry, biologists learned physics, chemists learned about electricity, and everyone learned about genetics. Physics had been the king of Western science, but biology was now catching up. What would this powerful new tool, radiation, bring to the world? The Manhattan Project built a large medical division, creating new institutes and research facilities all over the country. With funding from Kuhn Loeb and key philanthropists, medical research boomed. It was really radiation. and not necessarily for the good of the public health. Many teaching hospitals and universities that still exist today are arms of the Manhattan Project, which still exists today. Splitting the atom was not the end of the road. Exploring radiation and all of its untold possibilities was and is the road. Radiation is a moving wave. Radiation is energy. Radiation, whether it's radio frequency microwave or ionizing gamma waves, is a high oscillation energy wave moving into and through living cells. It cannot be said that these high frequency energy waves do not affect our cells. When radiation enters a cell, it literally shakes, encloses, or blasts its way in, creating fragments of organic debris. With millions of cells, and you have anywhere from 50 to 75 trillion cells in your body, with millions becoming damaged, the body has a major cleanup job to do. Bits of debris can graft onto each other, attempting to rebuild and heal, often resulting in what is known as mutation. The immune system and the cells themselves are hard pressed to keep up with the task of conducting cleanup and preventing irregular mutations. Mutations are the result of injury, and they're also the attempts of biological forms to adjust to what is happening to them, to rework themselves, to coexist with the new situation forced to change. Micronuclei, you see them in the lower picture, they are fragments of DNA that form protective membranes around themselves. And under a microscope, they look like extranuclei. Now, 24 hours of cell phone exposure, radiation from cell phones that you have just been around for 24 hours is enough to create micronuclei in your blood cells. This has been known since 1998 when epidemiologist George Carlo, who wrote this groundbreaking book, Cell Phones, Invisible Hazards in the Wireless Age, began to gather these findings from scientists in different parts of the world. Carlo was hired by the telecom industry to investigate the health effects of using cell phones. Confident that he would give the technology a green light, his 6-year project was funded with $25 million, and the results were grim. Carlo and his teams of researchers who conducted and repeated the test found that human blood showed genetic damage after exposure to cell phone radiation. There is no question about it. Micronuclei, diagnostic markers of cancer, were showing up after only 24 hours of exposure. So imagine years of cell phone use. The presence of micronuclei means that cells can no longer repair their broken DNA. Cells reproduce by subdividing, making new copies of themselves. If their genetic information is altered in its injury process, if the DNA strands are broken and repaired with errors, new information is built into the cell. That information may be incorrect and harmful to the human body when new cells are made. Let's pretend a DNA chain is like a sentence. So an example could be Mary had a little lamb. If the sentence is broken and the letters are scattered and then pieced back together by the cell, what if a piece of the D breaks off and it becomes a P? Now the sentence is Mary has a little lamb. And what if the N in the original lamb gets turned upside down and becomes a W? Then the sentence might become Marty saw Allie laugh with misspelling, new subjects. Now we have Marty and Allie, these rearrangements, and these floating letters that go nowhere. So if the sentence is a code for the cell to copy itself, what's it going to do? The radiation age in which we live today is one of body-shattering harmonics that compel our cells to remake themselves with errors. The biological world is being pushed beyond its tolerances, which is the main purpose of the field of metabiology. Meta means beyond. Metabiology is about biological prospecting, seeing what happens when living things are subjected to experimentation. We are all living experiments today, observed through the growing power of surveillance and data collection. Our abilities to tolerate the changes around us are being molded. Those of us who survive these forces and changes will be the forms from which future forms are created. Where is the proof of all this, you might ask? How can I be saying such outrageous things, and how could you possibly convince your friends and neighbors that such deliberate experimentation is going on? Fierce Economy 2011 addressed the subject of synthetic biology, a vast field of cutting-edge study that combines biology, physics, chemistry, genetics, robotics, nanotech, and artificial intelligence. From the title of the talk that you can see on YouTube, From Chemtrails to Pseudo-Life, the Dark Agenda of Synthetic Biology, I explained that life forms are being inlaid with artificial materials that are the building blocks of life and are setting up shop inside us, combining and integrating with our own biology. Metabiology using nanotechnology and microelectronics opens up a whole new world of hybrid forms and processes to be observed in man. From conductive materials, elements of brand new unexplored environments are constructed. And this is really the key here. Conduction leads to construction. All this is done without wiring, outside any lab, and in our own body. Life itself is electricity, the exchange of electrons and protons on the cellular level. I mentioned in my last talk piezoelectricity, also known as the piezoelectric effect, whereby frequencies can be used to create voltage and vice versa. Pierre Curie was the pioneer of piezoelectricity back in the 1800s. It was then called crystalline physics. The piezoelectric effect works on crystals, ceramics, DNA, and certain proteins. The first two are used in electronics and microelectronics, while the second two are the building blocks for organic life. Piezoelectricity is a kind of wireless electricity. Voltage resulting from high vibrational force, also described as pressure or mechanical stress. Piezoelectricity is exhibited in a range of natural and synthetic materials. Some of these materials are polymers, whose long-chain molecules attract in the cellular level in response to electrical fields. Magellan-type manifestations include polymer fibers as well as many kinds of crystalline structures, along with altered forms of DNA. All this suggests the presence of microelectronics and the orchestration of piezo effects within and upon tissue and cell substrates. Piezo devices are widely used in the telecom industry, information technology, and the medical field. Piezoelectric devices access a universe of possibilities. They can draw power from our own movements, our heartbeats, blood flow, to fuel themselves. The day may come that your conversation on your cell phone powers you with no need for a battery. This is the future that Pierre Curie opened back in his laboratory in 1880. A future in which life and living processes power technology is the opposite of technology giving power to us. At SAIT, which is Samsung Advanced Institute of Technology, researchers have used nanowires to convert 100 decibels of sound into 50 millivolts of AC output. This is piezoelectricity made with your conversation. Nanowires and nanogenerators can convert your voice into electricity that powers your phone. Granted, the researchers tell us that 100 decibels is louder than a normally conversing human voice, which is 60 to 70 decibels. But have you noticed how loud cell phones are, how people yell into them, and how the voice at the other end is so loud too? To me, that's not a normal conversational voice. So we are already used to raising our decibels when talking into our portable phones. The singularity is a term referring to the marriage of man with machines. Technology will improve us, make us faster, smarter, and better. The surface ethical debate is, can we trust our computers to keep our best interests in mind? You can't say at heart, because they have no heart. Or will they sell us out, turn us into their robots, their slaves? Now this is the surface debate. The real debate or question is, who out there is interested in getting technology so far ahead of us that believing we are being made better, most of us will be compromised in deeply unethical ways? Pierre Curie himself said in his 1903 Nobel speech, "It is possible to conceive that in criminal hands radium might prove very dangerous." And the question therefore arises, whether it be to the advantage of humanity to know the secrets of nature. Powerful explosives have made it possible for men to achieve admirable things, but but they are also a terrible means of destruction in the hands of those great criminals who draw nations into war. Radium was only the beginning. The scientific inquiry that followed was all about developing radiation as a silent weapon of destruction during war and in times of peace. It was known as radiological injury. Slow and progressive, populations could be compromised without their knowledge. The pairing of vaccines with radiation, as in the famous Salk and Sabin antidotes for polio, was the first major assault on American immunity, destroying the ability of generations of Americans to form healthy neurological and immune systems, leading to new diseases resulting from the destruction of myelin, the protective nerve sheath, and what we now call autoimmune disorders, in which the body attacks itself. Vaccine lots were shipped to areas where nuclear tests were being done. The radioactive fallout raining down on children playing would remain in their genes forever. The vaccines they were given in the years that followed would be that much more potent in creating a new internal matrix that set the stage for profound changes to human biochemistry and resilience. With a young family of his own, President Kennedy was personally not in favor of nuclear testing, but advised by the Atomic Energy Commission that the fallout was no worse than an X-ray at the dentist's office. He agreed to have the test continue. The Cold War arms race against the Soviets and their hydrogen bombs was imperative to world safety. So here was another 1950s imperative.
1955, a year of anxiety and triumph. A major medical hurdle was crossed with the discovery by Dr. Jonas Salk of the anti-polio vaccine, which was to spread a mantle of protection over millions of American children. And the scientists entered the ranks of the medical immortals. Leading drug firms shifted into high gear to meet a national demand, which spread to every crossroads despite early controversy. Each hastily set up center became a mecca for anxious parents shepherding little Johnny and little Jill to their inoculation. They're protected, and it didn't hurt a bit.
It was known in the 1940s by Manhattan Project scientists that radiation destroyed the cell, leveling the immune system, putting it basically back at zero, bringing it down to zero. With immune systems that were not strong enough to protect them, children growing up in the 1950s and 60s could not defend themselves against the neurotoxins in vaccines, and vaccinated they were a lot, for this is the way of modern medicine. Polio itself is a disease caused by neurological cytotoxicity, damage to the nervous system and the immune system by chemical exposure and exposure to radiation. So-called modern diseases like ALS and multiple sclerosis leave their victims in a wheelchair, unable finally to breathe, just as polio did. These are all polio diseases. I cannot tell you enough times that polio has never gone away. The polio vaccine did not prevent polio. It was a way to introduce the world's population to, and I put this in quotes, a successful medical protocol that actually created more neurological impairment, all of which was renamed, recategorized, and which generated new research programs, and the shift from pathogenic bacterial disease to chemical disease. Polio is not a virus that lurks in ponds and swimming pools waiting to make you sick. It is all over America, in the form of exposure to chemicals and radiation. Polio lives on vibrantly today. So this is Jonas Salk. The Salk Institute is an extension of the Manhattan Project. And all these experiments were done on children with this so-called vaccine, only really to level their immune system. This is President Eisenhower's grandson, was recipient of one of the first polio shots, along with hundreds of thousands of children all over America. Today, many of these children are adults with inexplicable health issues, ranging from fibromyalgia to autoimmune disorders and allergies, cancers, brain dysfunction, and sclerotic paralysis. It's all polar. That's all it is. It just has a bunch of different names. Welcome to the radiation age. As said, radiation so damages cells that it overloads the body's ability to detox, to repair, and to reject foreign materials. Remember that. Body cannot reject foreign materials when the immune system is leveled like this. You could say that before it visibly cripples us, it cripples our immunity. And the damage created by microwave radiation is ultimately no different than that created by gamma rays and X-rays. You cannot qualify the source of radiation damage once it shows up in the body. My own theory about Fukushima and the many failing reactors we're hearing about today is that this is a grand cover story for what could be called the EMF killing field. 50 years of peer-reviewed studies confirm that radiofrequency microwave radiation is just as harmful as nuclear radiation. The victim's words, quote, "Our mutated cells will reproduce new mutated cells until the body finally shuts down." Epidemiologist George Carlo forewarned of an explosion of cancers and serious neurological injuries that will begin to appear right about now as a result of millions of people using wireless technology for a solid decade. The key is chronic use, repeated exposure. The world today has 7 billion people and 5 billion cell phone users. That leaves 2 billion people who have no cell phones, people who are known as the absolute poor. Here are the results for a tower and antenna search at our location in downtown Los Angeles for a 3-mile radius. 96 towers found, 8 registered, 88 not registered. Now that's towers, the big one. 96 in a 3-mile radius. Here is the antenna results. So 613 cellular antennas in a 3-mile radius. So you add the 613 to the 96. And you don't get a pleasant number. There was no pre-market testing of wireless phones or technology before it was unleashed and the industry deregulated. That was 1996, the deregulation. The researchers advised that phones should be redesigned to minimize radiation to consumers. The new flat rectangular phones are made to be placed in the shirt pocket or pants pocket instead of being put on the belt. In the city of Guangzhou, China, you find the biggest cell phone, I could call it the cellular selling field. China's biggest foreign trade center with knockoff cell phones that are sold by the barrel. African chiefs come in person or send emissaries. The government estimate for China's exportation of cell phones is 750 million in 2010, and that is just the government estimate. The names are Samsung with N, Motorola, LOA, and the prices are 1/5 of what the real brand costs. This is how we have now 5 billion cell users, and that number will only grow. Now remember this, the telecom industry is not concerned about lost casts in small cities like Holland over cell phone use. They are waiting to gobble up a world market in countries where population is growing and everyone wants to talk to everyone else. From a program on CNBC, I learned that cell phone service in India is a mere 50 cents a month. More Indians have access to a cell phone than they have to a toilet. With sights on these giant expanding markets, millions of new enthusiasts coming on board each month, telecom can be easily made to fit wallets all over the world. The human cost of radiation in the radiation age is showing up as abnormal neurology and abnormal psychology, radioactive fallout from bombs and wireless radiation. It all creates the same biological damage. One just takes longer than the other. Physicist Ernest Sternglass pointed to intelligence deficit in high school students who were born during peak world fallout. Irradiation of populations, and I can use a lot of words here, compromises, damages, destroys, hurts their neurology. Neurology means the brain signals to the muscles, intelligence and personality. Intellectual and behavioral abnormalities caused by neurological brain injuries. That's what radiation does. Telecom, on the heels of radioactive fallout, is irradiating the world's population. And radiation combined with vaccines not only does double damage, but chains of man-made concoctions are injected into the body on a schedule. Vaccines are administered to children in CDC-recommended schedules, monthly, yearly, continually. These materials combine with our biology and redirect our chemistry. And then we have nanotechnology, nanobiotechnology. We are promised now by futurists and pioneer visionaries like Ray Kurzweil that nanobots introduced into every living thing and every inanimate thing will make the entire universe intelligent and responsive. Nanobots will clean up our bodies. They will enable us to do everything better, from running the mile to thinking and digesting our food. No one will be able to imagine a life without nanohealth because, are you ready for this? No one will be able to survive without it. We will be so biologically compromised by the sweep of assaults to our bodies and brains and immune systems that we will require nano-intervention, medicine with nanobots as its mobile army, going into our bodies to give us a hand. Our bodies will fail in the future ahead of us without nanotechnology. You could say that atomic bomb detonation, testing, and the fallout that came down on us was phase 1 of the Manhattan Project. Modern medicine and big pharma could be described as phase 2. The effects of chemicals made into miracle drugs in the body include cytotoxics, neurotoxics, and immunosuppressants. The effect of vaccines changes and weakens our internal chemistry. Food allergies are largely the result of protein and oil molecules in the vaccine entering the bloodstream directly and bypassing the digestive tract. Radiation medicine, for diagnostics and treatment, is more destructive to the body than the cancers that it claims to address. We as a species are much less strong and resilient than we once were. We have learning disabilities, attention disorders, problems processing food. We have chronic fatigue, osteoporosis, autoimmune dysfunction, dementia, cancer, fake knees and hips. Here are photos of David Brower, an early environmentalist, head of the Sierra Club, rock climbing and simple chemistry. People less than a century ago were a lot stronger than we are. They did not have to contend with the kind of immunosuppressive stressors that we are succumbing to today. You can imagine as the third world becomes westernized, and I use that word in quotes, how many more people, billions, will be affected by systemic degeneration and loss of health. And it isn't just about profits. Here's a statement by a government scientist made to CNN back in 1985.
But in the Soviet Union, a radio frequency, or RF device, has been used for over 30 years to manipulate the moods of mental patients. It's called a LIDA machine. It radiates pulses of radio frequency energy, as well as light, sound, and heat. The pulse rate is in the extremely low frequency range, between 0 and 100 pulses per second. Dr. Ross Adey is the top researcher at the Veterans Administration Hospital in Loma Linda, California. He has been investigating the effects of the LIDA machine.
Now, what do the Soviets use this machine for? Well, they don't use it anymore. We should be very clear that this is a machine which is regarded by them as somewhat obsolete technologically.
This scientist, who did not want his identity revealed, is employed by the U.S. government and has done secret RF weapons research. He believes that tests done with the LIDA and similar machines prove that humans are susceptible to remote alterations of mood and awareness.
Certain kinds of weak electromagnetic signals work exactly like drugs. So the promise is that anything you can do with drugs, you could do with the right electromagnetic signals. Apparently, there are specific sites involved, specific functions involved. It's a matter of matching up, just like it is with a pill or a drug to cause and effect. You could have a cause and effect relationship between a magnetic field and biological function.
The radiation age has now moved into its low-level, ubiquitous phase. Think about it. How much more prevalent the distribution of effects is when the method is everywhere at once. Distributing pharmaceuticals involves a person going to a doctor or drugstore to receive a treatment, and then that person having to take the pill or apply the treatment, a slow onesie-twosie method. Yet the side effects and changes were noted nonetheless, with occasional news breaking and drugs pulled as people became sicker. Regulation, should they or shouldn't they, is the working dialectic in the FDA Big Pharma game, where one oversees the other, although both are actually scratching each other's backs. If it's true that the effect of pharmaceutical drugs can be matched by EMS, then this will be the basis of the newest form of radiation medicine. The day may come that allopathic medicine will be seen as barbaric, a thing of ignorant past. Can you imagine the gave toxic chemicals as medicine, the way leeches were applied a couple of hundred years ago? The medicine of the future will be all about frequency. Scanners will use frequencies to read, analyze, correct, heal, prevent, and forestall all kinds of problems. Instead of taking a drug, people will receive frequency matched to their biological ailments. While this may sound fantastic and very progressive, it will only be more radiation in more forms, pushing the tolerances of our biology. We have already been subjected to 100 years of chemical pollution, chemical products, chemically laced food. Our bodies contain thousands of man-made chemical residues which have made us toxic and diseased. Today, the etiology of disease in the Western world is not so much pathogenic or bacterial as it was in the earlier age. It is far more likely to be due to chemicals and radiation. The germ theory of disease no longer explains what's happening to us. We are being told these days that viruses cause disease, that our genetics predispose us to having certain problems. You can be sure that the nuclear genetic medicine of the future will use new kinds of radiation devices for prevention and remediation of illness. It will be said that with, quote, regular treatment, unquote, the scanners will change our inherited predispositions and help to prevent the conditions we have markers for. Just as polio was given many new names, health problems of our future will be given new names, creating new research programs and funding to keep everyone busy. Thanks to sanitation and hygiene, we are no longer battling germs, but nor are mutating viruses raging to get us. The real basis of our problem is that we are up against an impulse matrix that uses signals and foreign materials in a systematic effort to change what and who we are. In 1956, experiments with radiating canned food using gamma rays resulted in the discovery of Xenococcus radiodurans, the world's toughest bacteria that actually made it into the Guinness Book of World Records. D-radiodurans, as they call it, is radiation resistant. In fact, it loves radiation. It gobbles up nuclear waste, and it tolerates 3,000 times the radiation that humans can withstand. Ordinary cells cannot fix a lot of damaged DNA, but D-radiodurans can repair more than 200 breaks because its DNA is locked tightly in a ring with toroid, preventing broken bits from floating away. D-radiodurans develop somehow, fortifying itself against scattering radiation. It can also withstand extremes of temperature like no other non-radio form. So the question is, how did it get that way? Did it form naturally, on Mars originally as some have suggested, or was it created by mutation, a result of man's experiment? Like D-radiodurans in its infancy, we are facing a similar intensely hostile environment. Microwave radiation pulsing through our urban world today could very well be the newest phase of a giant experiment. With the signing of the Atomic Energy Act in 1946, the Manhattan Project became the Atomic Energy Commission, which created the Joint Committee on Atomic Energy. This was an independent, all-powerful congressional entity, the most powerful secret committee in modern history, free from oversight and with legislative authority. It was done away with in 1977, the same year the Atomic Energy Commission was renamed the Department of Energy. Today, the Department of Energy is known as the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, DEEP. Its ostensible focus exploring production of energy for the welfare of the planet and protection of the environment, when the environment is really being taken apart and changed. With nanobiotechnology and piezoelectricity, new forms can be created and controlled. I call them pseudo-life forms because they work in imitation of nature, like nature, but not nature. The substrates of biological life, whether engineered or not, can be joined together and orchestrated to perform just like life. This can go on inside or outside our body. Frequency eats everything, for as we know, everything is made of waveforms and frequency. Once you have the building in the performance state of living and inanimate things, you can build anything. You can make anything happen. At a TED conference in Long Beach, California, a scientist showed how an inkjet printer could literally print out a kidney, a real jelly-like wobbling thing, because cartridges contain the right materials and the right programs is fed into it.
We then are able to actually image those, do 360-degree rotation to actually analyze the kidney in its full volumetric characteristics, and we then are able to actually take this information and then scan this in a printing computerized form. So we go layer by layer through the organ, analyzing each layer as we go through the organ, and we then are able to send that information, as you see here, through the computer and actually design the organ for the patient. This actually shows the actual printer, and this actually shows that printing. In fact, we actually have the printer right here. So while we've been talking today, we've actually, you can actually see the printer back here in the backstage. That's actually the actual printer right now, and that's been printing this kidney structure that you see here. It takes about 7 hours to print the kidneys. This is about 3 hours into it now. And Dr. Kang's going to walk on stage right now, and we're actually going to show you one of these kidneys that we printed a little bit earlier today. Put a pair of gloves here. Thank you. Go backwards. Oh. So these gloves are a little bit small on me, but here it is. You can actually see that kidney as it was printed earlier today.
Pretty wild, huh? He said actually about 14 times, so it must really be true. Machines are only tools. If you give them commands and raw materials, they can assemble anything. If you provide the building blocks, the right substrates, in the correct layers, you can build a kidney, a mouse kidney, a hybrid, any kind of hybrid. The universe is your playground. On May 23rd, a Scientific American article came out titled, "Apocalypse Soon, Has Civilization Passed the Environmental Point of No Return?" This article discussed an MIT computer program that predicts a big splat for humanity that we'll all be hitting soon. Food production will drop, energy will be scarce, water will be hard to get. Floods and droughts will destroy farmland, and global warming will set forests on fire. I call this the splat myth. Whether you believe it or not, the trouble and stress to the natural world, which you'll hear a lot about from other speakers at this conference, that trouble, that expiring of natural life forms due to overwhelming environmental stress, is being referred to by many as the next mass extinction. Remember this, once you have the building codes for everything, wiping natural forms out will just clear the slate on which to start again. The proverbial they that so many of us refer to in our exchanges and discussions do not care about a mass extinction because they can rebuild everything just the way they want to. That is metabiology. So, I'm going into the second half of this talk, and here I do ask people who do not have a strong stomach to go to their nice hotel or apartment or house and call it a night. And I don't really see anybody leaving, so remember, I warned you. So in my last presentation at ConspiracyCon in 2011, I spent a lot of time examining the genesis of what is known as Magellan Syndrome, described in a recent abstract as an emerging multi-system illness characterized by unexplained dermopathy and unusual skin-associated filament production. Morgellons sufferers, not all, but certainly many, are fiber factories. You can visit the Morgellons section at AboutTheSky.com or Jan Smith's excellent website, MorgellonsExposed.com, or Clifford Carnicom's extensive research at the Carnicom Institute website, and any number of other websites, blogs, and forums on the internet. To hear the horror stories of those who find oozing sores on their skin that never heal and that produce strange, unidentifiable, unnatural fibers, in many cases leading to discoveries of other materials emerging from these lesions, including crystals, shards of silica, metallic objects, and strange bioforms. Precursor-like, science fiction-like, the descriptions go on. Pain, itching, crawling, like broken glass and lit cigarettes attacking me from the inside. That's the quote. The sense of an intelligent colony living in me. It's all part of the Morgellons saga that is affecting anywhere from thousands to some unknown number, because so many people have never had a proper diagnosis and simply do the best they can. Morgellons is a technological disease if it can be called a disease at all. Morgellons victims are a new group among us, although some have had it for 20 or more years. They are canaries in a coal mine, but we do not know exactly what is being mined, for the official word on Morgellons is that it is a delusion possessed by those who are out of their minds, who self-excoriate and embed materials in their skin, possibly to seek attention. If you are at this conference, you probably know this is not true. You may or may not know someone who has the condition. I have come across a number of friends and people out in the public who have noticeable sores that I can see as I walk by them. Morgellons is not a hidden thing. How it is contracted is not quite known, although the fibers produced by those who have it are composed of the same material as fibers found in environmental fallout, and biological materials in the fallout also match what can be cultured from human tissues obtained from people with and without the Morgellons condition. All this I covered in my last talk. Morgellons is out in the open. It has been discussed in the news and conveniently minimized, although more and more afflicted people are coming into doctors' offices for help. Yet most doctors make vague and simplistic diagnoses, such as dermatitis or folliculitis, and laboratories simply report that they cannot identify the fiber specimens sent to them. The progression of Morgellons goes on. I have known people who developed lesions after working in backyard soil or mud, after being bitten by something that they feel was not a biological bug. One person was outside beneath a giant chemtrail being sprayed and got something in her eyes, which caused them to burn and tear and her sinuses to flood for many hours. After that, she developed lesions and shards of silica began to come out of her skin. A few people with advanced Morgellons have shown me what their bodies are producing and have allowed me to share these pictures with you. What follows will be graphic. One woman who has had this condition for nearly 2 decades has lesions the size of soccer balls on her body, deep craters that fill up with biofilm, which she calls goo. The buildup creates great pain and pressure, which gets to a point where she has to use her fingernails and razor blades to dig the contents out. This process taking several hours every night in the bathroom. The doctors she has seen call this self-excoriation, believing that she is mentally ill and doing this to herself, pulling and ripping her flesh to create deep self-inflicted wounds. This is far from the case. You could say that this woman, who does not want her real name used, is in the grasp of something she has no control of. It opens up her body, which oozes and bleeds, followed by great pressure, agonizing pain, and then the release of stuff. This, for instance, is on her shoulder. As a giant lesion on her lower body began to close, a new one opened up on her shoulder. It's as though the condition must express itself, must manufacture its stuff. Within the craters are holes, and inside the holes are deep tubes. You could call them chambers. Here are cross-sections of tubes. She tells me her blood is no longer liquid. It is goopy, gelatinous, filled with a thick, viscous material being made inside her. She believes her blood has become synthetic. And deep in the tubes she finds sacks of tissue containing form. Here is one such emergence. A tubular mass from inside the crater That isn't a blood vessel. It's all part of the material. Here's another map, a cross-section of a tube. I'm operating on myself, he told me. These tubes are running through my body. Stuff wants to come out. It feels like someone's digging into you with a screwdriver as the tubes grow inside you. Here are more materials, a string of fibers and sacs, much like a knotted rope, and a ropey mass that's part biological with a budding joint. The range of materials is incredible. Here's a tissue sac attached to purple fibers and dark metallic fibers twisted like cables. Fiber-laced gel with an insect inside it and a colored fiber cluster. Here are more insects, and a quote. The bugs are in tubes. I pull the tissue out. The tissue is like a tube. I open up the tissue with tweezers. I found ants, moths, spiders, flies, caterpillars. Some insects are hybrids. They're crossed. They don't look like. This was a green bug that was inside a tube. He was alive. He was living in the tube inside my body. His wings were flapping. He was the size of a gnat. He had eyes. There are also indistinct forms that look like seahorses, Egyptian hieroglyph heads. They have embryonic legs and arms. He told me they're 2 to 3 inches long. I can take pictures of them with a regular camera. Here's a purple creature like a centipede. There were 2 that came out together, she told me, and ran off to different parts of the room. The bugs are alive. I can see their eyes. They look at me as though they want to stay alive, saying, please let me live. In addition, this woman has clusters of pink fibers, very much like those cultured by Clifford Climate. His research shows not only the incredible hardiness of the fibers, but the production of trans-biological reactions, making them engineered materials that are probably various bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. I explained this in my previous talk. This woman's body has emitted twigs and leaves, as well as metallic forms that are etched or engraved, bearing letters or symbols. Just last month, a green ball the size of a tube encased with fibrous growths came out of it. This was not inside a tube. The surface was textured, she said, like moving styrofoam. There was also this red textured donut the size of an aspen. August 9th, these 3 spheres came out stuck together with a kind of bioglue. She has no idea what they are or what they contain. They could be biotechnological underneath their coating, and they were accompanied by a fiber. Reported by nearly all who have Morgellons are the complete loss of body energy and the stubborn fibers of all colors that resist pulling, that won't burn in a match flame. And about the fibers, if you look at American money and US dollar bills, especially new ones, they have colored fibers running through them. Dan Smith compared the fibers in money to the Magellan fibers, found them to be pretty much identical. Ignited with a blue butane flame, they both release a halo, a drop of material contained inside. And she used mere tweezers to pull a fiber from a $20 bill to experiment with it. You see that just on the left. The big question is, those who make the money, can they get it with these fibers? Is the Morgellons material coming from the same place? Here's a picture of a Morgellons toenail seen under the microscope. You can see the colored fibers, the network of pure fibers. And then in the center, it looks like a chain. More crystals in the shape of hexagons. These come from different people, issuing from the lesions, many embedded in fibers or tubes. They are clearly geometric, glittery, very like piezo reactors. Here's a 3-dimensional hexagon, found with a tissue filling like a sandwich. You can see the fiber below it with a small hexagon inside. Let's look at one of the previous hexagons, and I'm going to go back to that slide because you can see this one very well. The one that I'm going to show you again is up at the left, the top left, the blue one with the black. That's actually a very advanced little machine. And then the 2 below it are hexagons embedded in this biofilm that hardens. Biofilm starts as a glue and then it becomes very hard. You can see that there are these very thick materials, and then shrinking back in the entire way. Just remember that crystals are one of the best creators. This was the little one you saw in the top corner before. It's a composite of several crystals fused with bioglue that glow and light up when touched with a needle. This is what Jan Smith calls a nanomachine, a device that has to have specific microelectronic functions and capabilities. I'm going to show you a video so you can watch its behavior. It's the size of a single letter. You can play the video. It's the size of one letter on a U.S. penny system. So it's smaller than a sesame seed. And as she opens it up with sewing needle, opening it up, you can see that the crystal inside is clear, and that it's on some kind of hinge, which told me was actually a bio-glue hinge. And you see this mirrored interior. Like that, and then the inside of it has this very bright, that is like aurora borealis colors that change. And this was the same device that had a blip on the back. You can see on the left how it's there and it's together. Here are plaques. These are hard silica-like forms that shatter under pressure. Remember, frequency is pressure. So just touching with a needle caused this blue plaque to break into smaller fibrous replicas of itself, and it created a column of quartz. So that precursor was number one, and then that number two shows a more fully formed version, and then it shatters what appears to make smaller replicas. She's broken a lot of them. She gets a lot of them, which is what she's destroyed. And from everywhere come the fibers. The fibers are filaments. They're hollow tubes or tubules. The glue is a kind of biofilm that eventually hardens into these fibers. And in the fiber masses are the crystals and the nanotechnological devices. Blue marked with colored dots, at times etched and labeled. And I talk about the glue at length in the other talk, which you can get at my table, or you can see it on YouTube. The talk I did at Conspiracy Farm. So now, here is a very important biology lesson. Tubes are the fundamental unit of organic design. Tubes are fundamental to natural form. The human body is a tube, since the skin is kept with bones and organs. Plants are tubular constructions. From the trunk of a tree to its branches, twigs, and leaves. The leaves consist of a network of fibers in and along which the business of life is performed. So organic life depends on tubular networks and is created in and from tubes. Mark Krasnow is a biochemist and medical doctor at Stanford. He has mapped the 5,051 airways of a mouse lung, all the sprouting and branching that expand a simple embryonic tube into a mass of filament-fine airways that pour oxygen deep into the animal's body. This, he says, is the beginning of understanding organogenesis in mammals, how the growth or branching of tubules leads to organ formation. The lungs, for instance, begin as two small buds, almost like a wishbone, that branch into more buds, growing and branching over and over into a system of airways in a set of adult organs. The tube is an embryonic the fiber network I drew in the slide all by itself in a piece of tissue. It didn't look like this in the beginning. Fibers are an integral Morgellons form, just as they are integral to biological life. And fibers, tubules, are hollow, meant to have some function, contain, and produce something. Here's a picture of a fiber at 5600 magnification that was cultured by Clifford Carnicom with a visible internal structure mass that's on the left and a branching bud that's on the right. There's another Clifford Carnicom discovery that is guaranteed to cause concern. Filaments that contain red blood cells and also are observed to be producing red blood cells. And here's what sends us to the root. These filaments are not just found in people with Morgellons, they're found in everyone, and they can be cultured to produce the same thing, red blood cells. You have to ask yourself what we're doing in our bodies. This is all engineered stuff, filaments that have no match to nature, that are engineered blood. And we all contain these engineered materials. Now I'm going to throw in a video I found on carbon nanoformers. In it you'll see similarities to the Morgellons tubules, their bud and their inside. And you'll also see the hexagonal skin on what are called fullerenes, named after Buckminster Fuller of the geodesic dome.
Other forms with pentagons are the spherical forms of carbon, the fullerenes. There are different sizes, but the most famous is C60, made from 60 carbon atoms, which has the same shape as a football. Different size fullerenes, one inside the other like Russian dolls, are known as onions, because they resemble the vegetable in shape and number of layers. If nanocones are stacked on the top of each other, like ice cream cones, in the microscope they look like this, where the lines form a series of diagonal stripes. The image resembles a bit the skeleton of a fish, and this is why these structures are called herringbone nanotubes. By choosing an appropriate catalyst in the CVD, we can obtain nanocoils. This form, which could also have been called nanotelephone cords, is like a normal nanotube, but for some unknown reason is coiled up during growth. When nitrogen is present during growth, tubes like these are obtained. They are multiple tubes, where every now and then the inner tubes finish with almost flat caps. They might remind you of a stick of bamboo, and indeed, they are called bamboo-like tubes. There are also carbon nanoformers which are a mixture. For example, it's possible to fill a carbon nanotube with fullerenes. These are called pea pods, because the fullerenes are like peas inside a nanotube pod. Recently, people have suggested the name of nanobuds for tubes which appear to have fullerenes or small sections of tube attached to their side, like a bud growing from the main stem of a plant. Another wacky name is nanowings, where a section of a nanotube wall is opened, and the tube seems to have grown a pair of wings. These are just some of our favourite carbon nanoforms, but keep your eyes open for more.
Fullerenes, which are spherical carbon molecules, C60, are amazing structures. They are crystals with a hollow interior composed of an exterior of hexagons and pentagons, a design that's now being used in nanotechnology. They react with elements across the periodic table and with free radicals. They are the holy grail of electrochemistry. Insoluble in water, they function like micro-batteries, releasing electrons. Their soft carbon interior becomes a super-hard diamond when compressed, and when doped with other metals, they become superconductors. They can behave like metals, catalysts, and change their shape entirely when introduced to the halogen, chlorine, fluorine, and bromine. Now here's something that just came out of someone who's done extensive investigation into Morgellons, not only because she has it, but because she's doing her best to find out what it really is. Her website, MorgellonsExposed.com, is worth spending hours on. She has not had anything quite like this come out of her before, and you're getting the first look at what seems to be a buckyball type of structure, fullerenes, with the same hexagonal skin. Now I say type of structure. This was the size of a poppy seed, and it was covered with biofilm. I put it in a tissue to get the goo off, she told me, and then I broke it open. It had a dark, soft interior that looked like carbon, and spread it out to look at the hexagonal skin. And then I used colored lenses on the microscope to see if the hexagons would show up better. here you can see this is under colored lenses. So this was the skin on top that covered that little round poppy seed sized thing. If this is indeed a microelectronic device, what is it doing in the body? Jan said there had been this thing in her chin where she has a persistent lesion for a long time. I decided to get aggressive with it and work it out. This was the first fullerene-type object that is one of Jan's own specimens. Here's the skin under the colored lens, but you also have to keep in mind that you're not looking at something that is a carbon-60 molecule. Real fullerenes would not be visible to the naked eye. But this was. All that can be said is it appears to be some kind of spherical form with a hollow interior and hexagon skin. Is it a larger version, some kind of machine form of a buckyball or fullerene? If we were electrochemistry wizards or nanotech engineers, we might know. This woman who found these insects, this one insect, these two views of the same insect in a Morgellons lesion on July 26, 2012, wants to know why her body is sending forth complex living organisms, life forms that are from other species. Is her body serving as an incubator, a surrogate mother, the tubes and tissues making living creatures using her energy? Or is it the combination of bio-goo and filaments and crystals and frequencies that somehow manages to synthetically orchestrate the creation of life inside a human body? Is this a form of experimentation? How is this even possible? Yet it's happening. She has found eggs in the tube inside the lesions, and the lesions have issued larvae. Others report bugs and worms, caterpillars too. When I first heard about bugs coming out of people's bodies, I didn't believe it. One researcher told me that insects like the bio-goo and they lay their eggs in it, and that was all, that Morgellons people were seeing the results of hatching eggs and thinking insects were coming out of their bodies. This was an explanation I could handle. But now, after seeing pictures of the tissue stats and hearing from people who do not have Morgellons and have seen this proof themselves, I believe anything could be going on. So ignorant and unsuspecting is the world in general about what technology is up to, what it can produce, what its playing with behind our backs. That's where I am. You could be anywhere else, and that's just fine. This is a journey into the terrain of suspending our ordinary beliefs. We are seeing intelligent materials imitating life to the point that some people are owned by the technology. It certainly looks like they are being used to make life and not in a natural way. A doctor who tried to help a Morgellons victim said in horror, "She has no reserve. I'm afraid that if I try anything, the body couldn't take it. She's right on the edge. I don't even know how she's alive. She should be dead." And I said, "She's not going to die. The technology won't let her die. It needs her body, her living body, to make its stuff. It's not going to let her die. She's owned by it." This was a new dawning to me and also to the doctor. We had not thought that technology could truly become the master and biology the slave. This is a new meaning for the word sustainability. Think about it. Technology will sustain itself on us. This is free energy, and the way it will be sold to us, machines using our energy, our blood flow, our heartbeat, our breathing, our emotion, to draw their power from. I call it techno-biosymbiosis. You can be sure this will be sold to us as a wonderful thing, a synergy, the most sensible way to run equipment. Your laptop will use your lap to run itself. Your phone will use your conversation. The machine will not be without you. You will be its engine. And social engineering will convince us all that this is just fantastic. In the meantime, the entire planet will have become intelligent. Your cells will be techno-biosymbiotic. Nanotechnology will be your doctor, chief of your immune system, keeping you going so the energy flow to the technology in you won't be interrupted. Your brain fog will be replaced by artificial intelligence, and you will have a smart house, in addition to your other smart possessions, including your ever-present phone. A new organization of nature, a new world order with frequencies running everything. Humans will have been redesigned by technological selection. We are in the corridor of that very systematic process right now. We are transitioning from biological entities into techno-biological hybrids. Right now we are participating in a giant global casting call. We are being tested and observed for our response to radiation and other alterations from the inside out and the outside in. You are seeing human decline, especially in the form of cancer, neurological and autoimmune disease. Many of us will succumb to the assaults from the inside out and the outside in, but some of us will make it. I want to say again that these success stories, the people who thrive, will be altered and capable of existing in the new nature. Depopulation is only a way of whittling down, weeding out the failures. It's an alteration agenda, an adaptation experiment. We are living laboratories, very cheap and convenient when you consider it. So here are the basics of what's going on. Nature is messy, too many variations on a scene, too unpredictable. It has to be controlled, hybridized, reduced. By being surrounded by radiation, ingesting genetically modified foods, and being given vaccines that also alter our biology and chemistry, we are being profoundly changed. Biologically, electrically, chemically. The new matrix, rippling with stresses to our inherent biology, is destroying our immune system. This is why so many of us are sick. And without a functioning immune system, our bodies cannot reject the foreign materials and forces repeatedly being introduced to control, hybridize, and reduce us by way of large-scale programs, among them chemtrails, vaccines, GMOs, and all these forms of radiation. It's that simple. This has been a long, steady agenda designed to push our limits to make us fail. With our natural resilience gone, with children on vaccine schedules and using wireless technology, a whole new experiment is underway. What will the children's bodies do? How will they perform? It is all being watched and observed. And some of us will definitely make it. After this worldwide audition, the tests we're being put through now, there will be fewer of us on the planet, but we will be tailor-made for nanotechnology, adapted to radiation, piezoelectric, smart in the most current sense of the word. We will be predictable, responsive, and properly engineered for a smoothly running hive. I would like everyone to give a very special hand to the woman in the picture. Thank you very much.
Now, when I say living in harmony with natural law or living in opposition to natural law, what do I really mean? Well, what this has to do with is knowledge. But we're going to keep going back to this trend, this thread. It's not going away, okay? And guess what? Every time I teach any of this stuff, whenever there's the new age community around the present, okay, and you'll encounter them from time to time, they'll insist, they'll even see the, it's like, you can tell knowledge is becoming a bad word. No. When you say K-N-O-W, no, it's almost like they immediately have a vulnerable, extreme negative reaction. And it is fear, but it's mind control, moreover, because they are being fed this poisonous untruth. There's not really any such thing as knowledge. And knowledge is not the way out of this prison. And I'm telling you, it is canon with religious traditions. Because they want you to externalize your power. Externalize everything. And I'm not telling you, I'm not saying don't have a model for behavior. And okay, this person, Buddha pattern, you want to pattern your behavior on the Buddha's life? great. Live the great life. You want to pattern your behavior on the life of Christ? Whatever. And again, I'm not getting into this discussion here today about the actual historicity of the man Jesus, regardless of what you believe regarding that. I understand I could write books on actual theology. Okay? I understand that being may never have existed in the way a lot of people believe he did. So what? Whether Siddhartha Gautama existed in the form of a man or not, or whether that's an allegory, who cares? Understand the spiritual teachings they were trying to convey to humanity, and then apply them in your life. Live by that ethic, that code, and great. Okay? And believe, have whatever religious notion you want. Okay? What I'm saying is, what this religion called the New Age movement, and what many official, organized, regional religions, okay, do, is they try to take the emphasis off knowledge. Because again, if you're not seeking truth and trying to develop knowledge, that's how this information remains occult. And that's how the control system stays in place. They want you to externalize your power to a deity or a guru. Once you do that, you're accepting your chains. You're saying, I have no power. Let me tell you something, folks. I'm not powerless. I am full of power. Why? Because I have knowledge of how things actually work. Nobody can tell me I'm owned by somebody else and can get me to believe it because I have understanding of my sovereignty. If they can take that away from you by getting you to de-emphasize the importance of knowledge, of self-knowledge, they own you. That's when you're owned at that point. Okay? Knowledge is the way out of this. Knowledge, understanding, and then converting that to true wisdom through actions. Not believing in something, not accepting everything, not waiting on somebody to come down and save you, whether it be Zoroaster or the aliens from Zeta Reticuli or Ashtar Command or Jesus Christ. Okay? You keep waiting on an external savior, you're going to be waiting in your chains forever. The knowledge of truth is what the Christ figure himself proclaimed would be the pathway to true freedom. Now, whether you put any emphasis on even exoteric Christianity, I'm telling you, that's the core of all the mystery traditions, is that until you take in the light, you'll never dispel the darkness. And the light is knowledge of truth. That's what it has always been symbolized as and represented as. Okay? Knowledge is the answer. And here's what the biggest piece of knowledge that comprises natural law needs to be understood. There is a difference. It is a 100% completely polarized antithesis. These are diametric opposites that exist in nature. These concepts, right and wrong, do not exist as constructs within the human mind. Anybody who believes that is thrown completely off the path. They are engaged in Satanism. Let me just say it just openly, right out, in a way that is completely unambiguous. If you believe there's no real difference between these things and that they do not exist in nature, you are accepting Satanism. It's a satanic belief system that comes directly from dark occultism. And once again, you could say whatever you want about believing that or not. I was a priest within this religion. So if you go up to a Jewish rabbi and you would expect he'd have some knowledge of the Judaic tradition, would he not? If you went up to a Catholic priest, you say, well, he has some knowledge of Catholicism and how it expresses the Christian tradition. If you go up to a Islamic, what do they call it? Right. You know, would you expect that this practitioner of his religion, who's in the priest class of his religion, would have some knowledge of Islam? Well, I'm telling you, I was a priest in Satanism. And I'm telling you, the concept of moral relativism is satanic belief. It is satanic ideology. It's their second tenet. They have 4 pillars. The 4 pillars of Satanism are self-preservation is the highest aspiration, and nothing comes above it. The second tenet is there is no such thing as the objective difference between right and wrong. Right is what's good for me, wrong is what's bad for me, personally. And that's it. And I get to make that up based on my likes, preferences, and whims. Okay? The third tenet is social Darwinism, which is an extension of macrobiological Darwinian theory. Okay? Social Darwinism, an oligarchy or a ruling class gets to direct the herd because we know better. And it's just our right to do so because our intellect makes us superior. And the fourth pillar is eugenics. Since we are ultimately God, since we decide what's real and what's not real, and we give that perception to the rest of the herd, and we get to decide what's right and wrong, well, we're God here. And therefore, we get to decide who lives and who dies. That's the 4 pillars of Satanism. And you know how many people believe that nonsense? A whole lot. Way more than people in the priest class of this religion, because they are propagating these tenets everywhere in human society. So many people are Satanists and do not even know that they are Satanists. It is a secret, infectious ideology. I'll tell you a personal anecdote real quick. And I'll tell you who it is now, because I don't care anymore. My own grandmother. All right, let's make it personal. All right? Okay? And I hope she sees it. My own grandmother, who I believe was in her late 70s or maybe early 80s at the time. Okay? I think she's in her mid-80s. And I don't speak to her anymore. I took a printed sheet of paper that I printed out of my pen, printed it out of a laser printer, and I put a little piece of white tape. I taped a piece of white paper over the heading, the title of the document. And I asked her to read this. It had 4 paragraphs, right? And the paragraphs described each of the tenets of Satanism, very briefly. Self-preservation is the highest law, etc., etc. Moral relativism is what we believe in. Social Darwinism is what we believe in. And we believe in eugenics. Okay? She said to me, well, I pretty much agree with everything that's written there. And I said, you do? And she said, yeah, that's how I think. I don't see anything really wrong with it or bad with it. I said, okay. I said, peel that little strip of paper off that I taped to the top. I want you to see what the document is called. And on top it said, the tenets of modern Satanism. And you know what her response was? Well, then I guess that makes me a Satanist, doesn't it? Not horrified. Not, oh my God, what is my belief system? What do I believe in? No. Well, guess that makes me a Satanist, doesn't it? As if it was just no big thing. And you know what? You know how many people are in that mindset? Hundreds of millions, if not billions, and don't even understand what it is. Because they think Satanism is something that is not. They don't understand what the ideology of Satanism is. They think you have to be associated with the trappings of Satanism, okay? That you have to dress like, as if there's such a thing as dressing like a Satanist. Or you have to have certain things on your walls in your house or in your garage if you're a Satanist. Well, let me tell you something. Satanists are the owners of banks. They own hospitals. They own schools. Okay? Yeah. Certainly that university right across the road. And many people ascribe to this religion in their thoughts, emotions, and actions, and do not even understand it because they don't even understand what that belief system is about. They don't understand what that ideology is. They don't know its tenets. So, again, going back to this, if you don't know that there is an objective, meaning in nature difference, okay, between right and wrong, that is a satanic belief system.
The Matrix is one of the greatest metaphors ever. Machines invented to make human life easier end up enslaving humanity. This is the most common theme in dystopian science fiction. Why is this fear so universal, so compelling? Is it because we really believe that our toaster and our notebook will end up as our mechanical overlords? Of course not. This is not a future that we fear, but a past that we are already living. Supposedly, governments were invented to make human life easier and safer. But governments always end up enslaving humanity. That which we create to, quote, serve us, ends up ruling us. The US government, by and for the people, now imprisons millions, takes half the national income by force, overregulates, punishes, tortures, slaughters foreigners, invades countries, overthrows governments, imposes 700 imperialistic bases overseas, inflates the currency, and crushes future generations with massive debts. That which we create to serve us ends up